Joining me now from New York City to talk more about today's hydrofracking forum is Senator Tony Avella. He serves on the Senate's Environmental Conservation Committee. Welcome, Senator. It is good to see you.
It's always a pleasure to be on your show.
So first we need to clear this up. This was a forum and not a hearing because the Senate Democrats do not have the power to hold a hearing, right?
Right. If the Republican majority doesn't grant us the authority to hold the hearing, all we can do is have a forum. So that's what we did.
And what's the difference, really?
Well, a hearing is recorded by the Senate, and it becomes a permanent history of hearings or committee meetings of the Senate, whereas a forum is just, in this case, held by the Democratic minority, and it's whatever records we keep.
Okay, so we know already, it's pretty well established, particularly from you, because you've been quite outspoken on this topic, that the Senate Democrats don't like fracking, that you would prefer to see a ban, actually. So why is it that you felt compelled to hold this forum when it's already pretty well established where you stand?
Well, I think it was necessary because within the last few weeks, a number of very disturbing things have happened. One, that through the Environmental Working Group, who did a FOIL request, we find that the State Department of Environmental Conservation leaked, submitted proposed regulations to the oil and natural gas companies before it was ever given to the public. And they were apparently given the opportunity to comment on the proposed regulations. Very disturbing. I consider that to be unethical, if not a violation of the law. The second part is we've sort of been given, the feeling that the governor and the Department of DEC is going to, sometime in the very near future, issue permits for hydrofracking in the state. And we thought it was important, once again, to have a forum and have the scientists, the doctors, the geologists, the environmentalists come forward and talk about the science. Remember, Governor Cuomo said he would not allow hydrofracking in this state if the science said it was not safe.
Yep.
Well, we had scientists here today at the forum saying it isn't safe. So why are we even thinking about going ahead? I'm calling on Governor Cuomo to stand behind his commitment.
Okay, so regarding the Environmental Working Group, we actually had both sides on not too long ago on the show, and the DEC and the industry claim that what occurred there was actually statutorily required because an industry that's going to be impacted by regulations that will be promulgated by an agency is required to be contacted and required to be discussing how it would be impacted by those regulations. Are you not buying that?
I'm not buying that at all. I mean, there's a difference between sharing information with stakeholders at the same time you share with the public, as opposed to sharing it with the very industry the regulations are supposed to oversee and allowing them to comment and make changes. And that's apparently what happened. That's a disgrace. That's an absolute disgrace.
And also, we did determine that the Environmental Working Group foiled a finite number of documents. In other words, they didn't say, give us all the communications that you had, DEC, including with advocates who might be opposed to fracking. Similarly, it was your forum, you're entitled to do whatever you want, but did you actually have members of the industry there today?
We invited state DEC to come.
Yeah.
I believe we invited the industry. Even if they weren't invited, they are entitled to show up.
Sure.
And I would have given them the opportunity to speak. They don't want to show up. They don't want to confront the people who are opposed to hydrofracking directly, because that's a discussion. They're afraid of the legitimate discussion because the truth will come out. The science clearly shows, and thanks to the fact that other states across the union have had hydrofracking now for a number of years, we have a history, and the science clearly shows this is not safe. I actually had an oil and natural gas company owner testify today who is opposed to hydrofracking, and the interesting thing is he's reviewed the regulations that other states currently have and the proposed regulations that New York State is proposing. And in his opinion, despite what DEC and the governor say, New York has the weakest regulations of any state that has hydrofracking in the country. That's a pretty sad commentary.
Well,
and this is somebody who has worked in the industry and has owned wells.
Well, what we have right now, of course, is vertical as opposed to horizontal. I mean, that's what this whole argument is about, whether or not there would
Correct.
be horizontal fracking in the Marcellus. So here's the question for you. You actually recently said something to the effect of, Governor Cuomo, if you break it, you buy it. Essentially, if in fact he approves even a limited drilling plan, and it doesn't work out, and there's some sort of environmental disaster or even some kind of pollution event that's related not directly to drilling, but maybe a spillage from a truck or whatever might happen, it's going to come back to haunt him in 2016 should he run for president. But
There's no question about that.
okay,
Yeah.
but before
if the governor allows this, and it's basically being moved by the governor, because the DEC and the commissioner report to the governor. If he didn't want this to happen, we wouldn't be having a discussion at this point. There would be no proposed regulations. If he allows this to happen, he owns it. And the first time there's an accident, he owns that accident. He will own that contamination. And we know for a fact, and this is the data that's out there, that from day one, 6% of the wells will fail. From day one.
Yeah.
As time goes on, over a 30-year period, half of the wells will fail. I mean, that's an incredible figure. So 6% of the wells that are drilled immediately are going to fail and leak.
This is data that's included in Josh Fox's, he's the Gasland filmmaker, director, etc. He has this sort of short, he was on the show too and talked about it. The industry refutes his facts. But getting back to...
Well, the facts have come from the industry itself. He got this information from the industry.
Yeah, from their paperwork. Did you, so back to this question though, before we even get into the politics of it, which is sort of a long-term impact and what might impact the governor if in fact this goes forward and doesn't work out. Is there something that you and your fellow Democrats can do, assuming that he does go forward with this limited drilling? Will you sue, for example? I mean, you are in the minority at this moment. You might be in the majority after November. Who knows? We don't know what's going to happen. I mean, are you going to, is this one of the first things, if you come into the majority, that you're going to seek to address?
Well, if we were in the majority and hydrofracking has not occurred yet, the first thing we're going to do in the Senate is pass my ban legislation. That is a commitment that we make, and my entire Democratic conference, except for I think one member, is a sponsor of my bill. We will do that. That's a commitment of the Senate Democratic Conference. If we were in the majority, we pass the ban bill first day. If the governor goes ahead and allows hydrofracking, we're going to take steps. I'm not going to say what those steps are, but we're not giving up the battle. Across this state, right now, is the largest grassroots movement I have ever seen in my political career against hydrofracking. Each and every day, more individuals, more groups are getting involved to protest this. The very fact that in, I think it was the last week or the last week of session, a petition with 200,000 signatures were presented to the governor from environmental groups all across this state against hydrofracking. The movement is getting bigger and bigger each and every day. And if the governor doesn't get it, we're going to move in some fashion to stop this. We think this is the single most important environmental issue that New York State has faced in the last 100 years. And the ramifications, if we allow it to happen, could negatively affect the state for 1,000 years.
Okay, so let me ask you this then, Senator. I mean, recently the governor said that he won't rule out the possibility of crossing party lines and endorsing on a case-by-case basis Republicans, as well as Democrats. He's a Democrat, of course. And I wonder if you think...
Is he?
He's
Yeah.
enrolled. I mean, that was my understanding, and at least unless he's changed something that I don't know about. But, okay, so getting back to the question, do you believe that because there are many things that your conference and the governor differ on, I'm thinking maybe of this, there are other liberal issues, perhaps the millionaire's tax, other sort of very...
I don't consider that a liberal issue. I consider that a fairness issue.
Or progressive, whatever you might want to call it. He is more of a fiscal conservative, right? I mean, he's definitely demonstrated
Well, so am I.
Do you...
So am I.
But do you...
Like, what is...
Continue, go ahead.
Yeah. No, I'm a fiscal conservative too, and there are members of the conference that are. You know, spending the taxpayers' money wildly is no longer, in my opinion, what the Democratic Party is about. I mean, that's what it used to be decades ago. That's not what we're about today. The question is, will the governor support some Democrats in the Senate for re-election as opposing some Republicans? Well, he's the only one who knows the answer to that. I personally, if he endorses me, that's fine. If he doesn't, I don't care. I'm not going to ask for his endorsement. I'm running on my record, you know, in the year and a half that I've been in the Senate, and what I did before and what I plan to do in the future. So the governor can, you know, quite frankly, if he doesn't want to endorse Democrats for the Senate or help us get the majority back, that's up to him. In some ways, that's going to reflect on him as a Democrat, if he is a Democrat. Let's see what he does.
Well, fascinating. We will have to see what he does, Senator Avella. You are never shy about sharing your opinion, which is I appreciate very much, and you will be back soon, I hope. I want to thank you very much for being with me this evening.
Again, it's always a pleasure.